What if you took the 50mm lens and turned it all the way up to 11? No expense spared, what would really be the absolute best 50mm ever? There are a few contenders out there, maybe the Zeiss Otis 51.4, or the Leica APO Omicron, maybe the Noctilux. Well, I think it's actually this, the Lumix 50mm f1.4 S Pro, and in this video, I'll explain why. It's one of the first lenses to ever release for the L mount back in 2019, and it is still as optically close to perfection as I can ever imagine. And unlike all those other lenses that I just mentioned, this is also actually not a manual focus lens. This is fully autofocus, and it's definitely the best 50mm lens that I have ever used, and I think it's the best in the world too. And it seems like many online seem to share this same sentiment. So I would like to thank Panasonic Australia for loaning me this lens for 2 weeks to shoot with and try out, but they have no input on this video and no money has exchanged hands. And also the lens has actually been returned, so I don't actually have it to film any B-roll with it in this talking head portion, but I'll overlay some B-roll that I shot during my time with it. So after recently switching my main hybrid camera to the Lumix S5 II, I was really impressed with the performance of the smaller 1.8 S primes, but as I said in my review of that camera, I would love to try out some S Pro lenses, which are like their flagship ones, especially the 50mm f1.4, which I hear is like one of the best 50mm of all time. The 51.4 S Pro was a lens which really intrigued me because of its near mythical status as being considered the reference 50mm lens, as in the one that all other 50mm should be judged by. But its high retail price of nearly 3,500 Australian dollars and, more importantly, absolutely mammoth dimensions further made me curious to see just how good it really is. Well, I can confidently report that yes, this is one hell of a 50mm lens, both in image quality, weight, and also build quality. And in this video, I want to go over my experience of shooting with it, show you a bunch of sample photos taken with it, and be sure to watch until the end to hear all of my thoughts on this monster of a 50mm lens. Also, be sure to subscribe to see more great photography content. So when this lens came in, the first thing that struck me was its size. This thing is absolutely fucking enormous. It's nearly 1 kilogram in weight and it's longer than most 24-70 2.8s, including Lumix's own already quite huge 24-70 2.8. It's actually 20 grams heavier than that. Next was the build quality. So in my S5 II review, one of my complaints about the camera and the S Prime lenses was that I felt like they were a little bit cheap feeling given their price, which is nothing to knock their performance because it's exceptional, just that the all plastic build felt a little bit out of place given that I was so used to the build quality of Fujifilm glass. Well, I certainly wouldn't have said that if they were built like this weapon. The 51.4 S Pro is all metal with a beautifully clicky aperture ring and this amazing focus clutch to easily switch to manual focus control. It reminds me, the Fujifilm 16-1.4 WR had this clutch as well, and I really liked it in that lens. And it's really cool. You just like pull down on the clutch and then it goes straight into manual focus, which is awesome for like the video or if you want to get up close and do some macro stuff too. This thing is so well made that it feels like you could hammer in nails with it and the nails would get damaged. By the way, I did not test this Panasonic, so the lens was returned as you sent it to me. And as you can see on the back, it actually says Leica certified, which means it even gets the very special red dot seal of approval. I believe this label is only on a handful of lenses. Any of the, I think, S Pro lenses have the Leica certified badge on them. But the thing that blew me away the most was when I went out to take some photos with it. I mean, my God, the sharpness, the bokeh, and the fall off are just all perfection. Even wide open at 1.4, there is literally no signs of chromatic aberration or anything. And yet, like my all-time favorite 50mm-ish equivalent Zeiss to it also has this stunning pop to the images that makes all the images feel like they just jump off the screen. The autofocus is both fast and very accurate, and I feel like it hit 90% of the shots that I was taking, which, given the super shallow depth of field, is very impressive. I also love how it seems to nail focus on the eye itself rather than on the eyelashes or the cheek in front of the eye, which is a problem that I've experienced with cheaper and older 1.4 full frame primes. So I took it out for a shoot with my friend Chloe, and as you can see, the images are just sublime. And also, they're edited with my new preset pack, so if you like the way they look, be sure to check it out. Every purchase helps to support me and this channel. Now, when I say that this thing is as close to perfect as I can imagine, I mean it. The only thing that would make this lens simply otherworldly would be if they could have managed to make it half the size, which I imagine would have been literally impossible given how much glass is inside. This lens contains 13 elements in 11 groups, including 2 aspherical lenses and 3 extra low dispersion lenses. So it is no surprise that it's as big as it is. This lens delivers performance unlike anything I've ever experienced before, which, I'm not really surprised by given all the incredibly positive reviews it has online, but in my time using it, I was a little conflicted because its size simply makes it a little too unwieldy to use as an everyday lens. It's almost as big and heavy as some, 70-200 lenses, like for example, the Canon RF 70-200 2.8, which is astounding because it's still just a 50mm lens, and it's not some like crazy aperture like 0.95, for example. And this is the part where I would compare it to the 51.8 S prime lens, a lens which costs 5 times less than the 1.4 and is 3 times lighter, except that I don't actually own that lens. So this morning, this video was all finished and I was getting ready to post it for Monday. It's Friday today. But this morning I found a 51.8 for really, really cheap on Marketplace. So this was just $400. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go pick it up, and that way I can at least compare it. Even though I don't have the 1.4 with me at the moment, I don't have a lot of time because I'm shooting a wedding tomorrow and I'm pretty flat out for the next few days. So I'm just going to throw up a few photos that I took with the 1.8. They're not very good photos, but they'll just show you the bokeh and the sort of the character that this lens has compared to the 1.4. From my initial impressions, it's not like the 1.4. It's a very, very good lens, like the 35 and the 85. But 1.4 is in a completely different league entirely. The autofocus speed as well, and the accuracy on the 1.4 is like, it's better than on this one, I think. That's not to say that this is a bad lens, and I bought this because I probably will end up getting the 1.4 in the future, but given its size, I think that this is still a really, really valid option, especially if you go travel or you want to you don't want to carry around a giant brick with you, because this is 3 times smaller. During my 2 weeks with this lens, I was casually browsing eBay trying to find a used copy for cheap, and I actually just missed out on an auction where one sold for $12.50 AUD, which is a steal. But ultimately, given its size, I just don't know how often I'd actually use it. And for other lenses that are sort of similar in vibe on the L mount, you've got like the Sigma 50-1.4 as well. I've not personally tried that lens, but I did look up some reviews. It looks like it has pretty awful chromatic aberration at 1.4, which looks like it's been fixed in the 1.2 version, but that lens is like 2.8K. So, you can find the 50-1.4, the Lumix one, for around about 1.8 to 1.6 thousand used at the moment, Australian dollars on the used market. But the Sigma is smaller. So, but again, I haven't really tried the Sigma out, so I'm only going off of what I've actually tried here. And there's also like the Leica Summilux 50-1.4 as well, which some people say that the Panasonic is better, but that lens is, I don't even remember off the top of my head how much that lens is, but I'd imagine it's well into the 4 figures price-wise. I'd just like to reiterate why I think that the Lumix 50-1.4 is the greatest 50mm lens in the world. Because some people might be like, oh, well, the Leica Summilux 50-1.4 is technically better, or the Otis or whatever. But I've looked at the samples between the Summilux and the Lumix, and they look very, very similar. And if you consider the fact that the Leica is 3 times the price, lacks an aperture ring, I mean, I would be interested to see what the autofocus performance is like on them, because I know that on some of the SL lenses, the Lumix S Pro lenses have vastly better autofocus. So if you factor all that in, as well as the relatively affordable price, especially if you can look at the used market, I still think that the Lumix 50-1.4 is the greatest 50mm lens ever made. Look, I've shot with an Otis before, I've shot with the Noctilux ages ago, both amazing lenses, but they're manual focus only. They are extremely expensive. Like, the Noctilux is 20 grand. Like, it's a lot of money for a lens, bro. Yeah, and the Lumix just presents, like all of Lumix's recent full frame offerings, like the S5 II, unbelievable value for money. Like, the best value for money. And yeah, that's why I stand by my decision to say that it is the greatest 50mm lens in the world. So, who is this lens for then? Well, I think it's for the professional photographer who demands the absolute best possible 50mm image. I mean, it would be amazing in a studio environment where the weight doesn't really matter, or maybe on location when you aren't moving around a whole lot. I can't imagine having this thing hanging off me at a wedding all day. It would just be a little bit too much. oh, maybe I just need to go to the gym more. I don't know. Either way, if you do ever get a chance to try this lens out, do give it a go because it will blow your mind. I guarantee it. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.